We're gonna talk about you being a bare knuckle champion. What was that like?
Wow, that was all I could say is a lot of training, a whole lot of training, a whole nother level of training to be a bare knuckle fighter, especially back then because it was a lot different from the way they fight now. You were able to fight on the ground without all the locking and stuff, and you can stomp on the ground, things of that nature. Um,
Right.
it was tough. The training to become a bare knuckle champion was tough. The fights were tough. But they went a lot on style too. A lot of times you see the bare knuckle fighting now, they're very sloppy. But back when I was fighting in the early 70s, form was very important. Having good forms was pleasing to the eyes of the judges.
Right. Okay. Now, who was your toughest opponent? If you had to say.
My hands down, Ralph Mitchell, Sifu Ralph Mitchell. We fought in 1976. I think it was April of 76. We fought at Pace College for the America's Bare Knuckle Cup. And he was definitely, I'll go as far as saying he beat me and they gave me the fight. He was one tough dude. He was one tough dude. But there was several. He was tough. Victor Erwin Sanchez was tough. Ernest Anderson was tough. Wilfredo Rodan was tough. Ernest Hyman was tough. Floyd the Cat Turpin. So many of them were they were all tough, but I would have to say Ralph Mitchell because he was such a slippery fighter and he was so quick. He could get his defense was great, and then his offense was even greater. So I would say he was my toughest fighter, my toughest fight.
Okay. Now, as far as your training regimen, take me through a day of you training for a fight.
Ooh. That was tough. It was probably tough on my black belts, to my students that trained with me. But uh, getting up early in the morning, 6 in the morning, sometimes 5:30, and running barefooted during that time. I lived on the 17th floor, so I in my building, so I would run down all the way to the first floor, run back up to the top floor. We no, I'm sorry, excuse me. We lived on the 15th floor, but the building had 17 floors, 17
Okay.
flights. So I would run down to the first floor,
Mhm.
come all the way back up to the 17th to the roof, and I did that 3 to 4 times before I ran around the entire project, which was about 3/4 of a mile wide, and I did that, excuse me, about 9 times. Then I would do um, my push-ups. I had a heavy bag that I would leave inside a shopping cart, and I would take that to the park and do my pull-ups on the monkey bars, and then I would hit the bag for about 10 rounds. Then I would take a shower, go to work, come from work, hit the conditioning gym, do another couple of hundred push-ups, go to the karate school, do some training with my black belts, do a lot of push-ups, do a lot of sparring, do a lot of sit-ups, do a lot of calisthenics. Um, I'm leaving out a lot of stuff, but basically it was a lot. I did probably about 2,000 push-ups a day, 1,000 sit-ups within like um, one session. It,
Mhm.
it was a lot of work, a lot of tough work.
Running in the snow barefoot.
Running in the snow barefoot, um, doing knuckle push-ups on the cold concrete floor on the handball court,
Jeez.
uh, kicking the tree in front of my mother's building, uh, hitting the cement wall in my mother's building that the neighbors still to this day remember that. It was probably a nightmare for a lot of people, all the banging, but that's the way I train, and I trained like that for many, many years, even beyond my fighting career. My fighting career ended early because
Hmm.
I had children at an early age. So my last bare knuckle fight was probably 78, 79, around there.
Right.
Um, and then when I had and then I did professional kickboxing
Mm-hmm.
too, in between the bare knuckle stuff. Fought on a few cards and fought a lot. Lot of fights I had was on the West Coast too, in the mid 70s. Fought BKF fighters and John and Dean Picard and fought. I can't remember everybody, but I fought quite a bit in Los Angeles County and had a couple of bare knuckle wins there.
Mm-hmm.
So the '70s was a tough era, tough era. Hmm.
Was it true that you used to pay a group of people actually to jump you just so you could train?
Yeah, I did that quite a bit. I would have pay guys to come in the dojo to spar with me. Uh, I would pay a group of guys in the park. If there was 3 or 4 guys in the park, I had a couple of dollars and I'd pay them to all jump me at one time so I could get my practice on and they did it because during that time it was the heroin era and people were getting high and hanging out in the park. So
Right.
uh, guys would do anything for a little bit of money, and until they got tired of getting beat up, and it took a turn, and I had to do other things. I was just improvising then, so I had to find other ways, and then I would just have do a lot of sparring with my black belts, where we would go easy in a night, 25 rounds of just hardcore sparring, and anybody that came, a lot of black belts visit the schools, my schools, and I would spar with them, and a lot of them would get me ready. Gahidi Tipentera and people like that, would come and get me ready. Hmm.
Safe to say they don't do that anymore.
No,
Um,
no, no, no. The training now is totally different, and
right.
I'm just one of the many guys that could tell you what the type of training. Many guys did that type of training during that time. The training they do now, a lot of these black belts couldn't hold up with the training we used to do, and that's a fact.
Now, what motivated you to continue training?
Never wanting to be out of shape. When I got a taste of what it was like to be in shape, I never wanted to be out of shape. I always wanted to be an instructor that would lead by example.
Mm-hmm.
So when I would see other instructors that would use age or injuries as an excuse, not to continue with their training and just teach, and I would go visit schools and see instructors so out of shape and they're teaching classes and chewing gum and walking around just giving orders. It was appalling to me. So I never wanted to be out of shape. I always wanted to be an example for my students, and whatever my students did, I did, double. And they'll all will tell you, all my black belts tell you, I did everything they did and more. And there was times when I taught, 9 classes a day, and trained with every class and did my own training in addition to that. And I wasn't the only instructor that did that. Many instructors did that. I'm just probably one of that to talk about it, but many instructors that came up in that era trained like that. That's all we did. That's all we did.
Well, a lot of those instructors we're going to have on this podcast, but we're going to go to a quick commercial break.